back to another episode of the Screen Addicts podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Cinema, Steven Sosa.
And I am Mad Dawg. What's up?
Mad Dawg. Welcome back, Mad Dawg.
It's good to be back, and back with a name change. Before I was Mad Dawg Forrest, but I guess now I'm Mad Dawg Guy because I got married, so...
Ooh, look at the little rock on that hand. Well, congratulations. And I guess that was the last episode that you were on with us was the rom-com? Was it the rom-com?
Yes, it was the rom-com episode.
There wasn't... It. Oh, okay. So yeah, you weren't on the wedding one, but the wedding one was in honor of your wedding, but you were actually on the rom-com episode.
But we did talk about wedding stuff in the rom-com one. So.
I mean, it kind of fits. Some rom-coms fall into the wedding genre, so that just makes sense that way.
I think we talked about Father of the Bride, maybe.
For sure.
Did we? Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely did. Okay, well, congratulations on your nuptials. And what's great is that you actually moved away from us, far, far away.
That's great.
In a galaxy far, far away. And but you came to visit because it's actually your birthday coming up. And it's actually your brother's birthday today. So
shout out to Connor.
Yeah, shout out to
Happy 19th.
To Connor, who's also been a guest on the show. And it's funny because, you know, as a gift to him, we decided to come up here and record this podcast. So that's really nice. But we'll have to celebrate with him later. But yes, and you know what's crazy about birthdays is like he has his birthday today. Your birthday is in a few days on the 31st. Then Chris, our co-host, Chris TV Villegas himself, is born on August 3rd, which is this upcoming week. And then mine is at the end of August. So there's like a lot of collection of birthdays here in this whole month, I guess you can say, in a month span. So that's good. Okay, well, we actually are delighted to have you on here because the main topic of this episode is going to be the discussion of the polarizing, entertaining, groundbreaking double feature that was Barbenheimer. And luckily I was able to watch not one, but both of them with you. So we're going to give I guess we'll just do spoilers. It feels like a lot of people went and saw the movie anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think there's really a lot of spoilers in either one that would kind of ruin or do anything different with the movie. So that's okay. But we'll do that a little bit later.
Alert. There's a bomb.
Yeah.
A bomb blows up.
And it wasn't at the box office either, because both of those movies tore it up. As a matter of fact, when we came to visit you in Lakeland, which is right in between Tampa and Orlando on the map, we came out there to go see at least Barbie with you and your husband. Shout out to Luke. Can't believe I gave a shout out to the Hubs before you did.
I know.
But that's okay.
Give a shout out to Connor first.
Yeah, well, you know, it's okay. You know, Connor, Luke, we're all family now. So
yeah, one big family.
Well, I was saying that we were all going to go see Barbie in the theaters, but literally every single one was sold out, so we couldn't even go watch it. And you know, just is how it is. But I guess the seats in the front row that weren't stadium seating were available, and yeah.
So then definitely everyone should have seen it and not have spoilers if it was all sold out. So
that's true too. That's true. But you know, like I was saying, nobody's going to sit in those front row seats. We were even making fun of it when we were walking by those seats, just looking up at how high it was to just, that screen's just too big. There's no way that was going to happen. But like in traditional Screen Addicts fashion, we do have our typical segments and topics. So the first segment is, of course, the recently watched segment. So Mad Dawg, please tell us what you've been recently watching.
Well, I would like to start by, I don't know if it's the best start, but I'd like to say what, like, at least we most recently have been watching is the HBO series of Summer I Turned Pretty.
No, it's Prime.
Prime?
It's on Prime Video, yeah.
Sorry, scratch that. Prime.
It's okay. We're not sponsored by either, so you can
well,
say,
definitely not now.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have to cut this whole thing.
Yeah, so the Amazon Prime series, The Summer I Turned Pretty, which is based off of a book series, which I actually read myself. And this is like, okay, this is funny because this is like the third time this scenario has happened where I will watch a show that I think like nobody else is going to want to watch with me. And I watch it and then I'm like, wait, my dad will watch anything. So then I watch it and I'm like, he rewatches it with me. So I rewatch it a second time with him and then we'll just watch as they continue to come out. So I already watched the first season of The Summer I Turned Pretty. And then they're releasing the second season like every Friday, like a new episode comes out. So we have been trying to binge the first season so he can watch it. And a new episode dropped today. So we gotta make our way there eventually.
So the first season, there was 7 episodes and we burned through it pretty much in a day because I love teen dramas. Not all of them, but I like this one. And if you really show much of an interest, I think you have a pretty good gauge on that kind of stuff. So I don't even know what got the topic rolling on that whole thing. I guess we were still at the bookstore in Lakeland, and you said something about it.
Oh,
And
I know what it was because I saw an article. Someone had compared it to Dawson's Creek.
oh,
I
that's
saw an
right.
article. Someone said it is like the best teen drama since Dawson's Creek, and I told him about that, and he was like, "What?" And I was like, "He was like, maybe we should like watch it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll rewatch it with you." So then we started rewatching it.
And Dawson's Creek, it is not.
No,
But that's just there
but
needs to be.
it's hard to beat that.
It is. And, I think that it is good so far. It's just, nice, good old fashioned teen melodrama. And you actually brought up a good point about how it's just straight teen melodrama. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing catchy or flashy about it. Like, nobody has
And
superpowers,
I love
nobody's a
that.
superhero. And I thought that was a really good point to make. And I mean, I guess that's kind of why you've been really interested in Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill, because while there is some sensationalism in both shows, well, mostly One Tree Hill, it's still just kind of grounded teen dramas. Like, they don't rely on some kind of gimmick to push it through. There's no like supernatural occurrences or superheroes or, I mean, literally anything that's going on with Riverdale. So I don't even know what's going on with Riverdale. We stopped after, well, I stopped after the first one. I didn't even continue on after that. But did you watch any more of that?
No, just like memes on TikTok, like
I guess that's all
people
you would
making
need.
fun of it.
And then what was it that I was showing you the trailer for this newest season? I guess there's aliens in this new one, and they're going back in time, just
Yeah.
all kinds of crazy stuff. And I guess they called what, all the government saying that aliens exist and everything, which is goofy, but Riverdale called it first. But yeah, so okay, Summer I Turned Pretty, which is on Prime Video. That's really the only thing that I had this week, other than the two main movies that we watched. And anything else that you
I
watched?
have a lot because since I've moved to Lakeland, I've had lots of downtime while I'm trying to find a job.
Yeah.
And just lots of downtime in general as Luke and I have been hanging out in the apartment. So Luke and I went through Breaking Bad very, very fast. And I'm not one to usually actually finish shows. Like, I'm really bad about that, actually. Don't kick me off the show, but I have such a hard time with finishing TV shows. There have been so many that I start and like haven't even finished. And like, I love The Office, and I haven't even watched that show all the way through. And that's like one of my favorite shows. But beside the point, we finished Breaking Bad, so I was really proud of myself, and that I feel like says a lot about how good the show is, because not only did we finish it in like a few weekends. Like, when we were on the last season, it was Saturday, all of Saturday and all of Sunday. We didn't leave the apartment once. It was just, we thought we were losing our minds because it was just back to back to back to back Breaking Bad until we finished it. And then it was like the best feeling ever finishing a show. But that was one of my big recently watched twos, was Breaking Bad.
So what would you say critically you thought about it?
I think that's like the best show I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Like, ever.
Yeah.
So
who do you like more, Walter or Jesse?
Oh, Jesse.
Oh, really?
Jesse.
Okay. Yeah.
Who likes Walt? I mean, by the
Everybody.
end of the
will.
show, how could you like Walt?
Well, I
don't
mean,
know.
we don't like him for.
He always made me angry. Even the beginning of the show, like I was always just like he's a good anti-hero, right? Like, you like to hate him, but like I don't actually like so much he would like make me angry. And like Jesse was just the comedic relief the whole time, and you just felt like he was just deep down like a sweet like little person. So
A little person, Jesse?
Well, like I just feel like he just had like a good heart. So
Oh, right.
I don't know why I worded it like that, but I feel like he was just sweet inside. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jesse's like the underdog. Like, you just know that you want the best for him no matter like what he does.
Yeah. I mean, it's critically acclaimed, one of the greatest shows ever made. And we actually restarted it with you guys because Connor and one of our family friends, Erica, neither of them had watched it. So we started watching it again with them. And oh my gosh, it all comes back to me just how good that show was. And I could definitely rewatch that show, no problem. I think now that Connor's into it, I think we're going to finish it with him. Just, he's kind of our conduit to go and doing a rewatch of it. And I seem to be rewatching a lot of shows lately, and I need to finish more than I rewatch. Like, I'm following these podcasts like for Friday Night Lights and Buffy, where it's like every episode, it's a weekly episode, which is a recap of that particular episode. So I'm like, one a week of both shows, I could do that. That's no problem. But I'm sure there's a Breaking Bad podcast. There has to be.
Oh
I mean,
my
there
gosh.
absolutely has to be.
Well, I'll
And
start one if there's not one.
right.
Me and Luke will.
Yeah, because it's such a great show and it's so funny. And I remember Erica, you weren't here, but or we were watching it at her house, and she was like, "Is this show supposed to be funny?" Or maybe Connor was asking that. He's like, "Is this show supposed to be funny?" I'm like, "Well, it's a dark comedy. You know, it's a dark comedy where you're not trying to laugh, but you just are laughing because it is funny. It's so ridiculous in
I
certain
laughed a lot
cases.
in that show.
Yeah, and it's just so over the top that you're like, this is just almost borderline absurdist. But yeah, and then it gets into some really serious territory, especially like later on in the series. They kind of, you know, push out more of the comedy and bring in more of the heavy drama stuff. But those first 2 seasons are just really light in that regard. But yeah, Breaking
I
Bad.
think the whole show is funny. All the yos, all the
Yeah. And
all the Walter quotes.
well, I guess, are y'all gonna watch Better Call Saul?
We started it. Yeah,
Okay.
It's not like as hooking
No.
as Breaking Bad, but it's definitely good, and I love Saul's character. So.
Yeah, it's a really good series. It's a nice companion piece, but I mean, it's not on the same level at all. And I think it's funny when I'll see memes online where people are like, Better Call Saul's actually better than Breaking Bad. I'm like, are you insane? Are you just trying to like troll the internet? Because that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard.
What Better Call Saul is missing that makes Breaking Bad so good is like the whole show is like a thrill, right? Because you're waiting for this ultimate thing to happen, which like spoiler alert, but like the whole show, it's like a buildup of like, well, I won't say because if Connor listens to this, because he hasn't finished it. So.
He's like, she spoiled Breaking Bad. They just talked about how I started it.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Connor.
It's thrilling. The show is thrilling in a way that Better Call Saul is not, but it's still good.
Good. Well, I'm glad y'all watched it. Well, Luke had already seen it before, but
yeah, and Luke rewatch, and Luke's not one that usually likes to rewatch stuff, and that's how much he liked it that he was like, "I'll rewatch the entire show with you because you need to see this."
Well, good. So, anything else? Any other shows or anything? Y'all are doing a rewatch of the Star Wars saga, right?
I forgot. I was thinking just television, but movies. Yeah, Luke and I have also decided to rewatch Star Wars and like binge it, and it's really like bringing me back to like when I first watched Star Wars when I was a kid, and like I would watch it all the time, and I just loved it. And I'm like, I just love Star Wars so much.
Was it any more or less devastating seeing Anakin turn into Darth Vader?
Honestly, like I think it's been a really long time since I've watched Star Wars, and like when I was a kid, it was devastating because I watched the prequels first, and I like loved Anakin. But now that I'm like an adult, I guess, and I rewatched it, I was like, I feel like it's not that surprising, like that Anakin turned into Darth Vader. Like the more I watched it, and I was like, he's kind of weird, like throughout the whole thing. Like he's only really likable in the first movie.
Sure. I'm
like, so I don't know why it was so devastating to me when I was a kid. I guess just because I thought he was still like sweet little Annie as he started out. But I'm like, it's kind of obvious from the very beginning of the second episode that he is kind of weird and he's gonna do something weird.
That's my theory, is that he just turned pissed off because everybody kept calling him Annie all the time.
Yeah,
but
it's gonna be Conrad then, and then Summer I Turn Pretty.
Yeah,
everyone calls him
Connie. Yeah, I was like, he's gonna turn to the dark side, even though the majority of the season he was already pretty emo about everything. But we come to find out why, and yeah, I actually enjoyed that show so far. It's pretty good, and I guess we're two. Oh, you said a new one was released on Friday.
Yeah, so a new one was released this morning, and we have 2 more to catch up on before that one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this is also random, but we were watching Dawson's Creek last night, so I'm trying to get through that. And I made a comparison to Dawson and Conrad because Dawson's like grieving right now because of, spoiler alert, his dad. So am I allowed to say that?
I mean, Dawson's reached the limits.
I mean, that's a pretty old show.
Yeah. I think if you haven't watched Dawson's Creek by now, you probably won't get around to it.
But they're kind of giving the same energy, like Conrad and Dawson, because they were both, for the same reasons, they were both like grieving, and it was making them act different. So,
well, that's good. Okay, so any other shows or movies you'd like to share?
And that's about it.
That's it, huh? We, me and Sonia, or your mother, but to the listening audience, it's Sonia. We started. I mean, we talked about it a little bit in the last episode with Yellow Jackets, and that show's really good so far. It's pretty dark stuff. This Fool, which is on Hulu, the Latino comedy came out today on July 28th, which is, I can't wait to binge that show. That show is so funny. I watched it in a single day because it's just a quick, like 30-minute, I guess 8-episode comedy. It's just such an easy watch. Looking forward to watching that one. A couple movies that are coming out this weekend are, The Haunted Mansion, the new one's coming out. I don't know how I feel about that one. It already looks a lot more polished and closer to the ride than the Eddie Murphy version
Don't hit
was.
on Eddie Murphy.
I mean, I know it's cute, I guess.
That'll do, donkey.
Well, I'm not hating on Eddie Murphy. I love Eddie Murphy, and I like how your go-to for Eddie Murphy is Donkey, where my go-to Eddie Murphy's like, Coming to America or The Nutty Professor
Or
or something.
Daddy Daycare.
Or see, yeah, that's your second go-to. It's like, what's your favorite Eddie Murphy movie? I'm like, oh, probably Coming to America, and then your Daddy Daycare.
Daddy Daycare.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Shrek 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
and 4.
and the final chapter. Oh wait, no, it was the fourth. Shrek the Shrek the
I
third?
think there's 4 of them.
Oh my gosh.
No, I think there might be 5, honestly.
Oh my gosh.
5 had Rumpelstiltskin, I think.
Was he on the fifth? I don't know.
I don't even know.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I cannot. Well, we were seeing a trailer and for one of the movies. Oh, for Trolls. And I said, how many Trolls movies is
Trolls
this?
is a new Shrek.
And you said it's like the 4th one, like this new one?
5th one.
That is crazy. I cannot believe they have that many Trolls movies. And for some reason, I confuse them with the Sing movies, with the singing animals and stuff. I don't know why I like blend those two together, even though they're two completely different things. I guess it's just about the novelty of these singing creatures or something like that. But I don't know. And so what were we talking about? Oh, Eddie Murphy and Shrek. How did we get to Shrek? What were we talking about Shrek?
I don't know.
I already
You were talking
forgot.
about Haunted Mansion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Wow, we went way out of the way. Well, yeah, the new movie, the new Haunted Mansion's coming out this weekend, and I think it looks pretty good. I don't really know. I don't really have much of a fascination with that stuff as far as like another remake. I mean, I guess Haunted Mansion came out what 30 or 20 years ago now in 03. It was like the fall of 03. So I don't know why it feels more current to me. I guess because it's still within like rotation of stuff. Like you watched it when you were little.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, the new Haunted Mansion and that A24 horror movie that Talk to Me, where they do like a seance to that weird hand thing.
Ooh,
I don't know. That looks pretty
cool.
I heard that's really dark and scary, but
I would see it.
Kind of falls in line with A24 anyway. But yeah, so I guess headlines. So with the only real headline that I had was the box office success of Oppenheimer and Barbie collectively had the Barbenheimer, correct. I'm sorry. I won't call it individually from here on out, but it collectively had the 4th highest grossing weekend in history. So yeah, whatever the social media campaign, the marketing campaign for both, this whole ideal of watching these movies together just really paid off. I mean, yes, Barbie made a significant amount more than Oppenheimer did.
Did it really?
Oh yeah, it made like 120, whereas Oppenheimer made 80. But still, like nobody anticipated Oppenheimer to make that much because it's a 3-hour movie. It's rated R, and it just doesn't really have that widespread appeal. Like, ooh, let's go watch this 3-hour movie about this American physicist who creates the atom bomb.
I thought it would be appealing because it's Christopher Nolan.
Well, it is. Yeah, I guess that's the one.
I thought that was like the huge. That'd be the huge target audience would be like, oh, Christopher Nolan. I want to go see that.
And it turned out to be so because people showed up for that, but everybody was going to go see Barbie. Everybody was going to go see that movie because just like the marketing campaign for it. And
except for the Kens.
Well, in the Kens.
The Kens will see Oppenheimer.
Well, they want to see themselves in Barbie, but that's just the thing. So I guess we'll just get right into the main topic here. And that is our double feature of Barbenheimer. We, like many people around the world, not only did they see it in the same weekend, a lot of people saw it in the same day, which is pretty compelling because I can't remember where 2 movies were slated together as like a double feature at a drive-in where you went to go see both of them. And I just love the whole concept of, oh, who's going to see Barbie? Who's going to see Oppenheimer? Like where nobody was choosing. People chose both, And I think that's so cool how that ended up happening because it's just so awesome to see, like, instead of like, oh, I'm not going to go see that, I'd rather see this one. Instead, it turned into this collective mass of people going to see both movies. And that's the whole point, is like, go back to the theaters, go back to see movies. I mean, granted, now with the writer's strike and it getting a little bit more darker, as what we were talking about in last week's episode, things are probably going to get worse. They're looking at pushing this strike until December, which is terrible. So I don't know what they're going to do about all that. But until that time, we still have our movies that have been completed that the production studios are going to release because they own the property to do so. Any kind of writer's strike or anything like that doesn't prevent a holdout of any future releases that are already completed. And the only problem with that is like you won't have stars promoting them or red carpet events. And I
Mm.
already, another mini headline here is that the Emmys, which have already made their announcements and nominations, has made a big announcement saying that they're going to push the date of the Emmy Awards back because no stars are going to be there.
Oh
No,
my
no stars are
gosh.
allowed to go to that. So
Wow.
there's not going to be any Emmys there. But back to Barbenheimer, what we decided to do, me and the Mad Dog here, luckily she was here, so we got to do both of them together. And of course, we did very fashionably represent with a Oppenheimer and Barbie chic inspired outfits, where I was wearing dark and drab black colors, and you were wearing light bubbly pink and what is your cotton candy dress? It was pretty good. So we decided to start with Oppenheimer first because I think that's just the best way to
I
go in
think,
general.
yeah, anybody who is seeing Barbenheimer, which I guess it's already too late almost, but you should definitely see Oppenheimer first.
Yeah, because running at 3 hours, we saw it at what, like 3 o'clock in the
Mm,
afternoon. I said, cool, this will be out just in time for Barbie to start. And then Connor and Sonia showed up with us because they were at work. I said, I think they would rather see Barbie than Oppenheimer.
yeah.
And plus, after working all day, there's no way. Mommy would have felt, I mean, your mother, she she would have passed out in like 20 minutes because Oppenheimer is a very slow paced and methodical movie. Like it's 3 hours of it. So you have to fill 3 hours of this content. And I mean, you don't have to. Some of that could have gone to the cutting room floor, but with Christopher Nolan, he's very particular and very precise about how he wants to shoot his films and how he wants to present them. So everything is done for a reason. And with this decision, I thought it was the best case because we were getting a little tired. I know we were checking our watches there for Oppenheimer a couple of times, especially in hour 3. But when that was over, we met up for Barbie. Barbie was just like a blast of fresh air, and we were rejuvenated in our seats, and we were able to. That was an easy watch. I don't think I looked at
Oh
my phone,
yeah.
my watch one time. So, I mean, okay, so we're gonna go ahead since we saw Oppenheimer first, and we're going to do a quick mini review. And I guess we could do spoilers, like spoiler alert. I'm sure a lot of people
Yeah.
saw it. And like I said, there's not really anything, especially with Oppenheimer, that's a spoiler. It's a movie based on historical accuracy. So it's like any spoiler is already in any kind of textbook or anything that you can read in history class. So your immediate initial thoughts of Oppenheimer.
Okay, so I was worried when I was coming here to do Barbenheimer because I was like, okay, I got it. Like, I'm going to say so many things about Barbie. But then I started to think about Oppenheimer and I was like, I enjoyed it in the moment. I'm like, but looking back, like, I feel like it was like, I feel like I would have a hard time explaining it to somebody because there
Mm-hmm.
was so much fluff. And like, obviously, it's just like a bomb. Like,
Like a
like
good bomb,
the whole,
not a bad bomb. Is this a good or a bad bomb?
it's you see, I don't even know. Like, it was kind of confusing. It was hard to follow. I think it was a good bomb. It was good because there was like, listen, I'm not a history buff, okay? I remember learning about the hydrogen bomb in history class in like 5th grade, and so like I felt like I knew what was going on, and I was like, oh, I remember watching a video about that in history class. But I will say, after my initial thought is after the movie, it was intriguing. Like history is cool. Like it's like fun to learn about stuff that is real life, and why are you
What a
laughing?
dork.
History is cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
So it made me kind of want to go watch a documentary about like the hydrogen bomb and like Oppenheimer because it's very like interesting to learn about stuff that actually happened like in regards to our country and other countries because it's set during World War II. So there's a lot to like dive into there. But I just thought this was funny because I have my notes.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like I don't know if they can see this is all my notes for Barbie, and then these are my notes for Oppenheimer.
A clear disparaging difference. You have like pages of Barbie notes.
Not that I didn't like it. It just I definitely resonated with Barbie more. Like I played with Barbies when I was like a little girl. I didn't play with bombs when I was a little girl, so it was like a little
Well, that's
bit.
good.
It was a little bit different of a feel, but that made it a very interesting double feature though because it's like you're going back and forth with these two different feelings. But yeah, my initial thoughts were it was cool.
It was cool.
It was cool.
Well, I did like how right off the bat it really discloses the fact that you have 1 and 2. Like you have 2 timelines that are setting the precedent for
Classic
the entire
Nolan.
movie. Yes, it is very classic Nolan. And I was thinking, okay, so black and white is modern day, like what's happening in the present, whereas the colored version of the film is everything in the past that's going to inevitably lead up to a meeting point of the modern time. And of course, Christopher Nolan can't do anything without having something non-linear at this point. And it kind of made me think of Dunkirk a little
I was
bit,
about to mention Dunkirk.
because Dunkirk, and we saw that too. Me
Yeah, we
and you saw.
did.
I was kind of wondering watching Dunkirk, and I was like, oh, and you were a lot younger too when that came out. And I said, oh my gosh, I wonder what's going on in her head while watching Dunkirk, because Dunkirk,
I followed it.
it's not too difficult. 3 timelines, each one's just at a different time.
And like, it's funny that you say that, because you would think that Dunkirk was more confusing to follow, but I would say actually Oppenheimer was more difficult to follow.
Okay.
And I watched Dunkirk multiple times because Harry Styles is one of the people. I'm just gonna be real here. I watched this movie more than once to see Harry Styles. And actually, I think the reason I did go to see it with you in the theater was because it was like Harry Styles' movie debut. But I ended up really enjoying that movie.
No, that was the only reason I thought. I was like, how many Nolan movies have you seen prior to this? You're like, we watched the Batman movies.
But I surprisingly enjoyed that movie so much.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think I enjoyed, here's what I'll say. I enjoyed Oppenheimer more as a film, but like in regards to the timeline, I enjoyed the Dunkirk timeline more.
Okay, so you like how Oppenheimer like looks, but you like the structure of Dunkirk.
I liked the story in
Okay.
Oppenheimer better, and like that history.
Sure. That's okay.
And I liked Dunkirk a lot too, but it's just like a different feel, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that we're talking about these 2 particular movies, considering Christopher Nolan has a long, well, I wouldn't say a long, I think this is his 8th or 9th film overall, but the majority of his films have always dealt with some kind of like high concept science fiction, like Inception, Interstellar. And then you have his superhero films, the Batman trilogy, and then even movies like that he made prior to making Batman Begins, like Insomnia, Memento. Like, these are very interesting films. Insomnia, I think, is probably his only like straightforward movie where there isn't too many like back and forths and twists and turns. And then The Prestige was the dueling magician movies with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, which actually is pretty good. But as far as like historical dramas, he's really only done Dunkirk and Interstellar, Dunkirk and Oppenheimer. And I have a feeling, he's been snubbed quite a bit by the Academy for nominations for his movies. And it's just been kind of ridiculous at this point. But I, without a shadow of a doubt, believe that Oppenheimer is going to be nominated for so many Academy Awards. You watch this movie, it felt like watching JFK. I know you've probably never seen that movie with Kevin Costner, but just the way that the things are laid out, the black and white mixed with the colors, the editing is really fast. And I did love a lot of the technical structure of Oppenheimer too. I liked how it would show like inside the head of Oppenheimer, but it was like, wormholes, galaxies, stars exploding.
Yeah, I liked
that whole thing was pretty good. And I think that was kind of one, push for an IMAX screening, because it felt like those old science movie, like you would go on a field trip for science class and you go to like the OmniMax and you'd see those movies and, talk about space and the Ring of Fire, volcanoes, stuff like that. But I really did like that. I felt like I was on a science trip or something like that. But as far as that goes, and then the acting was really well done, of course. Like, you had a lot of people in this movie, and we kind of kept making jokes about Robert Downey Jr. in the movie, but nothing that was too distracting. It was just a lot of Iron Man stuff. But it's just funny how, I was going to ask you too. So Robert Downey Jr. plays Strauss, who's this man who may or may not be trying to persuade the government to believe that Oppenheimer is a war criminal and in league with the Russians and stuff like that due to jealousy or whatever it may be. But he also helps him in certain cases. So you don't really know what line he draws there. But I was like wondering, is there any way possible where you can watch a movie in this day and age without thinking of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man?
I knew you were going to ask that, and the answer is no. Yeah. I was like, in my head, I was like, is this like future Iron Man? Is this like Iron Man in a different universe? Like, is this like in this universe? Like, this is what he would have done if he wasn't Iron Man?
Right. It's a dark timeline, right? Yeah. I was just kind of wondering, because luckily I have a history of Robert Downey Jr. prior to Iron Man. So I think it's great that he's Iron Man. Yeah. And I think even for me, it's like, man, he is Iron Man, but I can also go back to movies that like Chaplin, that he was nominated for an Academy Award for playing Charlie Chaplin. So I could go back to a time when he was like digging down deep for these, really prominent roles, dramatic feats and stuff like that. But
I guess it did help because they made him look extremely old and like withered away.
Yeah.
And like his hairline was receding. And so like, I guess maybe they were intentionally making him look different so that he wouldn't look so much like Iron Man.
Yeah.
That's all he is anymore. So.
Yeah, it had to be. That's a good point. Like, he had to have a clear distinction. Otherwise, everybody's just going to think, oh, Tony Stark, what are you up to?
He did not look like Iron Man in this movie, but you can still tell it's Robert Downey Jr.
Right. And his voice, too, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it, like, even when he has, like, I don't know if it's just him. Like, maybe, like, in every role he adds a little bit of spice, but it's, like, his attitude. It's, like, that signature Robert Downey Jr. attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how Iron Man is, like, so full of sass and just attitude and arrogance. I feel like he has like a little bit of that in this role too. I don't know if it's just the way he acts. So I see like a little bit of like his attitude. I'm like, well, that's like that attitude is very like Iron Man-esque.
He's definitely going to get nominated for Best Supporting Actor role.
That would be awesome.
He has to. And Cillian Murphy too, who plays J. Robert Oppenheimer. I mean, this guy's been around for.
He was in Dunkirk too.
Yeah, that's true. And he had a smaller role in that one though. Oh, he's in actually. I think he's in more Christopher Nolan movies than anybody else. Like he was in Batman Begins, he was in The Dark Knight, and he was in Interstellar, he was in Inception. Actually, he may not have been in Interstellar. I can't really remember. But yeah, Dunkirk. Like, so he's been in a lot of his movies too. So I think that he's kind of found his muse here. It's like almost like DiCaprio working with Scorsese or something. Mm-hmm. But how did you think about his performance? Like, what did you think about Oppenheimer?
I think it was good. Like, I feel like it, like the way it was written and everything, I feel like you kind of resonated with Dr. Oppenheimer, Oppie, as they referred to him.
That was weird. I was like, why are you calling him that?
They called him Oppie. But I feel like you got to see like so many aspects of his character. Like you would see his role as like a scientist and like see him like as a person. And like when it got towards like the last hour, like you just saw multiple sides of him, which I thought was cool. And like the sides with like Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh. I don't know their names in the movie, but I'm like, it's Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh. Like you get to see like kind of his more personal sides and his professional sides, and then how he feels after the bomb is dropped. Like spoiler alert, but he kind of has this shift.
Spoiler alert for history.
Spoiler alert.
They dropped the bomb. Oh, guess breaking news, the Titanic sunk.
But like after the bomb was dropped, I feel like there was a huge shift in his character. Like you just kind of see him like he just looks different. Like because he's been traumatized by this bomb because it was a good thing like for the war, but they had to kill like 30,000 people in order to drop that bomb. Like innocent people they killed because of that bomb, and like you could just tell that that changed him as a person, and as it would change like anybody, like knowing that technically there's like blood on your hands due to something that you did, but he also like he didn't really have a choice because it was going to help the war, it was going to end the war and help our country and help like our allied countries. So it was interesting to see that tension too, because it's like part of you was like, why would they ever do something like that, like drop them like the biggest bomb ever made? But it's like you see from their perspective, like with the war going on, and I don't know, it's kind of cool. I feel like you really were like put into the world of World War II in this movie, like from a side that you don't normally see when you think of World War II.
Well, back in that time period, not that I was alive or anything, but the American patriotism ran a lot differently than it does in today's age. And I think back then you're talking about global war efforts, you're talking about this and that. So it's kind of like what you said. I mean, and that's essentially what they talk about in the movie is that, yes, while you are protecting your homeland and your allied countries, you're also basically creating death. And it's like, that's the central moral of the story, is that your consequences, the consequences of your actions, whether your intentions are good or not, can always be, flawed. And in his case, majorly flawed. And I like the things that he was dealing with that you show, and you can really see the turmoil that he's dealing with because of how they edit things and how he sees the world and, these visions that he's having and all that stuff. I thought was really well done. And, I thought it's a stellar movie. I don't think I can rush back and see it right away. I probably would watch it again with, Sonia. So I don't know. So do you have any closing statements on Oppenheimer? Oh, I have a question. I'm sorry. You brought up Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh. So which actress did you think brought in a more compelling performance?
Oh, well, I'm biased. I just love Florence Pugh as an actor.
Yeah.
But I will say I won't choose her because I didn't like her role as much in this movie. Like she wasn't really that prominent.
Yeah.
And she wasn't really a good character. I don't like that she didn't bring that much, like as an actress I think she had an amazing role. Like her performance was amazing, but her character, I just felt like it almost wasn't necessary. I feel like the movie could have gone on without her, especially because she's naked for a while. I'm like, it makes you think like, okay, this is why they had Florence Pugh in the movie, like so she could be like the eye candy naked girl. Like you just feel like it wasn't that compelling of a character to be in it. But Emily Blunt was like the end game for Oppenheimer, so she was like the wife that actually provided in essence to the story. Like I really like, one of my favorite scenes is with Emily Blunt, and it's when they're in that court setting and they're trying to decide if Oppenheimer is a war criminal or not, and they're like interviewing different people, and they finally interview his wife, and she puts them in their place.
That was a great scene. I think that scene alone will, garner her an Oscar nomination too, because she's pretty compelling throughout that whole movie. And it's frustrating from her because she's really intelligent and she knows that he's capable of speaking up for himself and not letting, these people trying to run him out of the country basically, and try to paint him as the villain, even though they were the ones who dropped, this creation and stuff. And I thought a lot of that was good. Yeah. As far as like Florence Pugh, it was pretty not shocking. I mean, but some of those scenes with her,
too much.
I was like, holy crap, like that came out of nowhere. But I think that's kind of what rattles a lot of people. But who was it from? Wasn't there someone from a kid's show that's grown up?
Oh my gosh, I loved the cast because there were so many like little random sneak peeks for people like my age, like little cameos, like Josh from Drake and Josh.
That's right. It was Drake and Josh.
Josh Peck, I think is his name.
We're like, where's Drake Bell?
I was waiting for him to be like, Megan!
Yeah.
That was his line in Drake and Josh anytime something happened was,
that's
Megan!
Too funny.
And then another random one was Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Oh, man.
The guy that plays Roderick. And he was like he was like a little background character, but I just saw people talking about it, and I was so excited to see Roderick because I don't think he's been in anything else.
Is it the Loaded Diaper?
Yeah, he's the Loaded Diaper. Yeah, that's his band.
Oh, and of course, your favorite one from the Santa Claus.
Oh!
David Krumholtz is technically his name, but
Bernard from Santa Claus. Let me tell you, like, my dad was cracking up for like 10 minutes when he came up and I was like, wait a second. I was like, that's Bernard. And he just starts like laughing for like 10 minutes. I was like, that's him, right? Why are you laughing? And he was like, no, it's just funny that you would just think of that.
That's your go-to for this guy. You're like, that's Bernard from the Santa Claus. I'm like, well, he's not Bernard in this. You're breaking the tension of the movie.
I'm like, what a cameo.
And Bernard. He was pretty good. He was pretty prominently featured in that movie too. He had quite a bit of scenes in that. And yeah, there's like so many like just random actors and stuff. Like Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, Matt Damon had pretty much one of the main roles in it. So it's not like he was kind of
your favorite
cameo.
What was your favorite cameo?
Oh man. Well, I don't know if I should say right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to say either.
I'll just say the actor that ends up playing Harry S. Truman, President Truman. I was like, somebody's going to play him because he's in one scene. I was like, somebody's going to have to play him, like a big star, and whoever did it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. And he was really good at it too. And he was, forget it. It's Gary Oldman. It was Gary Oldman. And I said, oh my God, he's playing. Man, this guy is such a good actor.
I didn't recognize him at first.
That he can play Sir Winston Churchill and Harry S. Truman. He played two different leaders in the same war in two different movies.
Oh, that's true.
That's how good of an actor that man is. But I thought, oh my God, it's Gary Oldman. Yeah, it didn't look like him at all. I mean, he had some like work to make him look more like Truman, but what does he say? He was like, so nobody get that baby out of here. Somebody get that baby out of here.
And that scene was crazy because they brought Oppenheimer in and they were just talking about how they wanted him to like continue like making bombs and stuff. And he was like, he basically saying like, I feel so guilty for what I did already. I don't want to like keep doing this. And he was like, huh? Get out of here.
He gave him that white tissue.
Oh yeah. Because he was like,
wipe your tears, and he's like, now get that baby out of here. And I was like, dang, that was pretty brutal. But I mean, that's government leadership there, and especially during wartime, man, they want to have the most powerful weapon that you can have in war. And but yeah, that was a pretty good cameo. That was definitely my favorite one. And I was like, man, we could have had some more of this. And I was like, no, you know what? Let's give us a whole Truman movie with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
But so overall, Oppenheimer, it's definitely delivers on what it says it's going to do. Watch it a little bit earlier. Don't watch it late at night. It does tend to drag out.
You won't make it.
And so yeah, I guess that's feature number one. So the main event in your case, Barbie. Barbie was released as well. And I think it's safe to say that you enjoyed Barbie a little bit more than Oppenheimer.
Well, yes, it was very exciting, and obviously, me and my dad just saw Oppenheimer, like just the two of us, and then my brother and my mom came in, and so it was the whole family, and like I was really excited just to see it with everybody, and I knew it was gonna be like very hype and exciting. So literally from the second the movie started till the second that it ended, like I was just giggling the whole time, and I think I've like laughed that much in a movie
Mm-hmm.
in the theater like in so long, like where I was just like laughing loud and like I just didn't care. Like I was like, it's funny, like everyone's laughing, it's so funny. Just like I guess just being a girl too, like I feel like there were so many little like hidden gems for like girls who actually played with Barbies like when you were like little. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's so nostalgic, and that stuff makes me so happy. So like even from the beginning, like when you see Barbie and she's like drinking out of her cup and like nothing comes out, and just the way they talk and the monologue, the dialogue, it just it's how you would play with a Barbie. Like
Mm-hmm.
it reminds me of like, you know, when you're a kid and you're playing with Barbies and you have a storyline for them and you have the little dialogue and they're doing like their activities, and you're like, this is exactly how it was in my imagination as a kid. So that was really sweet. I feel like that was spot on.
It's as if they were in your hands playing it. Like,
Yes.
oh yeah, obviously you're not going to be drinking. That was really brilliant. I thought that was great, and just how everything is so meticulous, and even how she was moving. Like she just, because a Barbie can only move so much. Like there's not much.
And her feet, like her standing, she
Oh, on her
took her
heels,
shoes off
yeah.
and her feet were like standing. I'm like, I want to try that when I go home.
How long did you last?
I can't do it. I'm not Barbie.
Right.
Not even close. I'm brunette.
But
So.
well, there's brunette Barbies. There's all kinds
That's
of Barbies,
true, but
and I think
not
that was
the
the
Barbie.
point, was that everybody is a Barbie. All these girls were, or these women were representing a different kind of woman that could also be a Barbie. Like, and that's even her name is traditional Barbie, because,
Yeah.
or no, stereotypical Barbie.
Stereotypical Barbie.
Yeah, because stereotypical Barbie is just the plain one, the main one, the number one, and everybody else is just a variation, but for good reason. And I loved how they presented that, and of course, Ryan Gosling comes in here as Ken, and I'm not. So I'm going to say it. I think he's probably going to get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor for that role, because he was so funny. He had layers of comedy, drama. He was singing, dancing, choreography. He was literally doing everything that you can do in that movie from a physical acting standpoint. And I said, man, and he was good at every single thing. He's even singing and playing on his guitar. And if anybody's ever heard of Dead Man's Bones, his band, like he's really good at playing and singing. So all that is him. And I just think I mean, he didn't steal the movie. I still think like that's Margot Robbie's movie. Like she corners it. She, shares the movie with him.
I don't know. For the past 3 days, all I've been thinking is, I'm just Ken. She loves, she sees a friend. He has like a whole song.
You already have it memorized.
It was so good.
It's like the new Peaches.
His character was so good.
It's new. Him and Bowser should have like a comp song. Peaches and Ken.
Oh my gosh. I think my favorite thing about the Barbie movie though was like it was entertaining. It was true to real life Barbies, like the toys, the dream houses, the cars, like everything is like so accurate to the toys. But my favorite part was just the unexpected like message that came along with it. Like it was kind of emotional towards the end, like spoiler. Oh, yeah. It was actually like I was about to cry in this movie. I think my mom was crying in this movie.
She was 100%,
because they kind of turned it into like a mother-daughter thing and like a woman thing. And so it was like really emotional. It was like very empowering, and not in like I know sometimes like feminism can be very controversial when it's like over the top and like it gets turned into a whole thing of where it's like we hate men. This movie did not do that at all. Like it was like such an accurate portrayal of like the feminism that I believe in, which is like the accurate kind of like actual empowerment in a way that doesn't tear down men or anybody else. It's just like building up everybody and realizing that everybody is special and unique, because you start to think like, because like there's a funny ongoing joke throughout the movie, like they do make fun of the Kens, but it's like playful, it's like a sweet ongoing joke that like the Kens are just like when they're left to their devices they start taking over the world and like they want to like take over the Barbies. But you honestly feel kind of bad for Ken, because Ken the whole time is just kind of wanting Barbie's love and he doesn't really know who he is without Barbie. And so the whole movie is essentially about Barbie finding her meaning in life and women having purpose in life. But then towards the end, they actually bring it back around to Ken too. And Barbie ends up building Ken up when Ken, I think it was my favorite part of the movie when Ken is like, I don't know who I am without you, Barbie. Like, it's Barbie and Ken. It's not just Ken. So Ken is having kind of like an existential crisis too,
Mm-hmm.
not just Barbie. And then Barbie, when she is empowered, is able to build up Ken, and then all the Barbies build up all their Kens, and then they all feel good about themselves, and then they all realize that they're all special and unique and made for a purpose. So I thought it was sweet that it ended up being about like everybody.
I did like how Ken was saying, I was all for the patriarchy. And then when I found out we didn't have horses, I lost interest.
That was my favorite part. Like, my favorite random thing was just like Ken's obsession with horses.
Yeah, it was so funny. And then even like when they're, well, see, that's the whole thing. It becomes what I expected it to be, which is a very satirical take on the story where they come into the real world. Barbie and Ken are living life in the real world, the one that we all inhabit. And so obviously her perception of how she comes off to people is a lot different than how it actually is. Like, she feels, or she always had the assumption that she's very motivating, very inspirational, when it's the opposite. And I saw a TikTok where there's a situation where she goes and approaches these little girls because she's trying to find the girl that's playing with her, because she's going through this issue. So she has to correct it by finding the girl that's playing with her. So she finds this girl, this young girl, and did you know, if there's I'm going to send you this TikTok. It kind of blew my, about the Bratz.
You sent it to me.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I did, because they're the Bratz girls. They look exactly like the Bratz dolls, the BRTZ dolls. And they even have the same name as the Bratz dolls. So I was like, oh my gosh, they're attacking Barbie. Like, this is terrible. I don't even like them even more now. But then as it turns out, the girl's mom was the one that was sharing that, playing with the Barbie and stuff like that. And America Ferrera, I mean, I've always thought she was a good actress, but man, she really shined in this movie.
Like, her monologue about her speech with women.
Yes.
I'm going to listen to that every day.
And as a man, I'm watching and I did not once think like, oh, these women are preaching to me. Well, I'm not like a big macho dude anyway. I'm not all about like, oh, yeah, man, no ma'am, crap like that.
But they just make so many valid points.
They really do.
Like,
if
nobody can turn that away.
And the problem is, like, you're not listening to what they're saying. If you listen to what they're saying, the message is pretty clear. Like, this is something. And yeah, her speech was so good. I was like, wow, that's a really great monologue.
Maybe she'll get nominated.
I mean, she should.
That speech.
I think that this movie, it's got a lot of things about it, like especially production design. Just from a technical standpoint, this movie looked amazing. The costumes, the set design, props, literally everything.
That should get nominated for like costumes and props and set design, because it was literally like I was transformed back into my childhood with the Barbie dream house.
Right.
And all of her outfits were phenomenal. Like, I left the movie being like, oh my gosh, should I throw all my Barbies away? Like, I want to go look at them. Like, where are my Barbies? I'm like,
Yeah.
Can I get rid of them? Where are they?
Do you still have them?
I don't think so.
I think. Well, we do have a container in the storage unit. I think it has
probably.
A lot of your toys.
Honestly, I had more Monster High dolls. Let's be real.
That Frankie Stein. You were Frankie Stein for Halloween, and that was like one of your best costumes.
Once I hit like 5th grade, I was a Monster High girl.
I was gonna say, like, what would you think if they made a Monster High movie? But I guess they did on Disney,
like,
right?
Yeah,
but that's like
they
low
made like
budget.
they made a high. If Greta Gerwig made a Monster High movie, let's be real, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be good. And that's another thing to say about Greta Gerwig and her husband Noah Baumbach, who co-wrote the movie with her, and he actually semi-discovered her because he cast her in Greenberg back in 2003. And I guess he didn't realize that she was an actress before she was even a director, but she was this kind of renowned indie darling who was in these independent films like Greenberg, Frances Ha, Lola Versus. I love Lola Versus. You should actually watch that. Maybe we can watch it before you leave, because it's a really good movie. And she, I guess she just decided she felt compelled to start directing when she wrote Lady Bird, because once Lady Bird came out, that kind of set her on a new path as far as being a filmmaker.
Was a really good movie.
Yeah, and Lady Bird's a really great movie. And then of course she does Little Women.
I was gonna say, I fell in love with Greta Gerwig as a director when I watched Little Women.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just want Greta Gerwig to direct every like book to screen adaptation, because it was just so spot on. There have been multiple Little Women creations like in the movie world, and this one just by far takes the cake. It's just so beautiful.
Well, I'm glad you have that enthusiasm, because she's doing the Chronicles of Narnia next. I think it's for Netflix.
I need to start reading the Chronicles of Narnia, because that's going to be amazing.
I think that's going to be really good. And clearly with Barbie, because Little Women, it's pretty vast too. It's a pretty big film, and there's a lot of set pieces to that and a lot of costume work in that and stuff too. But Lady Bird was a little bit more confined as far as just being a straightforward kind of indie drama. But with Little Women, there's big production value to it. And now with Barbie, there's massive production value to it. So I'm thinking she's just kind of stepping up the stage. And she also set a record for the highest opening weekend box office for a film directed by a woman. So you want to talk about women empowerment. Like now it's starting to move over in real life, and it's positioning her to be so much more pronounced. Cause I mean, she's got the biggest hit of the summer so far. So, you know, kudos to her. And I've always appreciated her as an actress. Now I've obviously appreciated her as a director. When Little Women came out, I was a little like, come on, man, it's not going to be better than the Winona Ryder, Claire Danes, Susan Sarandon Little Women. And then I watched it and I was like, holy shit, this movie is incredible. Yeah. It is so good. And
especially
of course,
if you've read the book and you're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly how I would dream.
We read the book when I was in school. That was a long time ago, so I barely remembered anything about it.
It's an amazing book.
And, you know, it was kind of odd seeing a Greta Gerwig movie without Saoirse Ronan in it.
I know, and I read online that she was supposed to make a cameo.
Oh,
she was one of the ones, and I read something about how Greta Gerwig was like, I hate not doing anything with, like, Saoirse Ronan. She's like, it feels like I'm doing something without my baby.
Yeah, and that was pretty missing. And, you know, Florence Pugh from Little Women obviously was in Oppenheimer, so she's not going to do Barbie.
And her other child, Timothy
Chalamet. That's right. He was in Lady Bird too.
She said, I think like she loves like Timothy Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan.
Well, you know, I think they're on different paths now because like he's obviously doing Wonka where he's playing. And I've got to say, man, that movie looks really good. I love the fact that they're doing an origin story, something creative, something different rather than just a typical, you know, like remake, another Willy Wonka movie or like a Chocolate Factory movie. But I think that one's going to be pretty good. But yeah, so you got to get on Narnia. You got to read the books. I think there's like 3 or 4 of them. Mm. So do you have any other thoughts on Barbie?
I was just going to say, one of my favorite aspects of the Barbie movie was when they bring Ruth in, like the actual inventor of Barbie. Like she's a really old lady, and what's the name of that actress?
Rhea Perlman.
So she's like so sweet and cute, and she's like the inventor of Barbie, and she comes in towards the end, and it's just like a sweet moment that she has with Barbie. Yeah. And I really, really, really enjoyed this take. I was wondering if they were gonna touch on it, like throughout the whole movie. I was expecting something like this because you start to see that Barbie, even though she's like the Barbie, like she's stereotypical Barbie, she actually, that's why she starts to feel so like lonely, is because everybody has their thing. Everybody, like there's President Barbie, there's Dr. Barbie, like everybody has their special thing, and Barbie is just Barbie. So she kind of starts to have this existential moment of like, well, what am I? Like what makes me special? And so that's when Ruth comes in and they start like talking and stuff. And they have this whole like montage of just like real life women. And it's so beautiful because it's just like, you're you, like you're special for just because you're you. And it was really sweet. And then like my favorite quote in the movie was when she said the thing about like, us mothers stand still to see like, so our daughters can look back and see how far they've come. I'm like, who wrote that? I'm like,
Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach.
No, that was too much.
You know, it's funny because
that is too much for a girl who just moved out of her home away from her parents. That's too much.
I had to do that, like lean over to look at your mom. I was like, oh yeah, she's gone. She's gone. Okay, so final question: who was the cuter older person, Ruth in Barbie or Albert Einstein in Oppenheimer?
Oh my god! I was sad I didn't bring up Albert Einstein, so I'm glad that you just said that. Because my favorite part of Oppenheimer, I made it very clear in the theater because every time he would come on the screen, I would be like, ah! Because he was so cute. Definitely Albert Einstein.
Yeah, he kind of steals the show. He
stole the show for Oppenheimer for sure.
The actor, because you know Walter Matthau, who was Mr. Wilson, Grumpy Old Men, he played Albert Einstein in a movie called IQ with Tim Robbins and Meg Ryan back in the 90s. And you know, it's cute, but I was like, man, this Albert Einstein in Oppenheimer, I was like, man, this guy's really good. Like he really looks like him without playing him in such a caricature manner. You know, you can have someone like over exaggerate his features, like his hair or his accent or something, but the way that they played him in this one was just so good. He was just so quiet
because it was just a nice little surprise. He just came out of nowhere and he was just like friends with Dr. Oppenheimer, and I was like, oh my gosh, Albert Einstein.
He goes, hello, Mr. Oppenheimer. You know like, how he talks.
His accent was so cute.
I was like, are you simping over Albert Einstein right now? What's going on here?
He was so precious.
Yeah, that was really good. And I just thought that was so funny. And I was like, oh, and then how you reacted to Ruth and Barbie. And What about the little old lady on the bench that Barbie tells, you're beautiful? She's like, I know. Like, this chick's cocky. No,
I just love old people, I guess.
Yeah, it was sweet, but I was like, oh, I gotta ask. The battle of the elderly, Einstein versus Ruth.
Barbie was my favorite, but Oppenheimer had the better old person.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll give them that.
All right, so any more closing notes on double features? So this is your first double feature,
It was my first double feature, and it did not disappoint. I loved it.
I have to say it's probably my favorite double feature. I haven't done too many in my life, which may seem surprising, but it's true. I do remember the one from my childhood that I think ranked pretty high, and that was in '94 when my dad took me to see The Lion King and Speed in the same day. And I mean, that's a double feature right there. But
yeah.
I think Barbenheimer, I feel, is more personal because I got to see it with you, and it's just, it's become a movement, the double feature of Barbenheimer. Like it's a compound word now, and nobody was calling it, the Speed King or anything like that. So it's just something that's happening. I do think it's funny now. People are trying to push Saw 10 and what are they calling
Saw
it?
Patrol.
Yeah, Saw Patrol, because Saw 10 and Paw Patrol are coming out on the same day, and I'm like,
or people started saying, never forget the Dark Mama when the Dark Knight and Mamma Mia came out.
That's true. Another Nolan movie.
So now it's like a whole thing of like combining movies.
And I bet a lot of production companies might actually work together, because this is another thing that could set a precedent where production companies always before would always want to release a movie at a different time than another movie as to not compete. But now you don't have to. Now you can like work together, create this fusion, and both movies benefit, And so that's that. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the podcast and or watching the podcast. And if you want to listen to more episodes, we are on all of the podcasting platforms. And unfortunately, as we had mentioned, Stitcher is coming to an end. So if you subscribe to us on Stitcher, please subscribe to us on another one. We are on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, all this stuff. So go ahead, follow us there. Follow us on all of our socials. We are on everything. Go to Screen Addicts Fanatics on Facebook in particular to join that group. That's where a lot of interaction takes place. And we're on TikTok. And it's at @screen_addicts for everything. Instagram's the Screen Addicts Podcast. This is where I really need Chris, because he's the pitch man. He's the marketer. I'm not. I just say, hey, go find us, Google us, whatever. We're out there. But again, if you're already subscribing to us, thank you, and we appreciate it. And Mad Dawg, it has been a pleasure having you come on here and joining us for Barbenheimer. Thank you for watching it with me. It was great.
As always.
So, okay. Well, that being said, adios, amigos.
Peace.